All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It is another edition of the Sportsmen podcast. Up top, maybe not up top for you, but up top for me, Joey D. Up top, Mikey V down below. The big tick can't make it tonight. I know we've been struggling to get the holy triumvirate back together again.
Yeah.
It will happen before football season starts. That much I could promise you. We were this close tonight, but life happens, and that's unfortunately the way it goes. But the one thing we would not allow, the one thing we could not allow, Joseph, was another week to go by without an episode. Now we're on a little roll here. Two formal episodes in a row, no lives, and we are ready to rock. Joe, how you feeling, buddy? Right around wedding time.
Yeah, wedding time. Just came back from the venue. Was meeting with the coordinator and the wedding planners. Things are in full blown motion, Michael. We are T minus, I think, 12 days away right now as it stands. So we are excited. I think it's going to be tremendous. I can't wait. I'm excited for you to come and see a little bit of where I'm from and experience Vancouver.
Me too.
I think it's going to be a great time. I'm really excited about it. And, time just is flying by. It's crazy. And a good thing too, because we now got football around the corner and you got a little taste of it this last week, which the average man might not realize how sweet a Hall of Fame game could be when you got backups and third stringers in. Mikey, I think, might have been the most dialed in man in America.
Yeah,
you had the headset going on. You had a tremendous play that hit with ease, a first quarter over 6.5. Walk me through how that felt, Mikey, to see football on the big screen again and what that means to us moving forward.
I mean, listen, football is my first love in terms of sports. My father is an avid football fan. Growing up in my house, like football was first and foremost. My grandfather, rest his soul, was the baseball guy. So my grandfather was the big Yankees guy. And he was the baseball guy, and he was involved with all like my T-ball stuff and baseball. But when it came to sports for my dad, it was like college football, pro football. That's all my dad wanted to know. It's all he talked. So, for me, now here's the thing. The Hall of Fame game to me, no matter who plays, is the most exciting preseason game because it's the first one. Now, as the preseason drags on, I'll be at the point even where I'm like, all right, I'm over this. Let's get to the real deal because preseason games, it really is like throwing shit against if you're going to wager on preseason games, it's like throwing shit against the wall and hoping it would stick. That being said, I did love the play last Thursday of the first quarter over, only because you had two quarterbacks starting in that game in Tyson Bagent and Davis Mills for the Texans and the Bears that have starter experience, a lot of starter experience in the league.
Davis Mills almost a whole season.
And they were going against backup defenses. So when the line is 6.5 and all you need is one play in 15 minutes to hit that bet, as long as the extra point is made, which nowadays you don't even know that, but all you need is one play in 15 minutes. In that situation, I really like to play, but excellent to have football back either way.
Yeah, I didn't get to watch really any of the game. I was kind of watching back through your stories and stuff and seeing how dialed in you were. You made a point too, to us on the Bill and Dump show that now we have football every Thursday until February.
Oh my God.
And listen, here's the thing, whether it's ideal as a preseason game or not, I think just being able to turn it on and to see it just kind of helps spike the excitement, knowing that we're not far away.
That's right.
That to me is what really gets me going and really gets me excited. And then you got college football, which is right around the corner too. So we've gone through the dog days of summer. We're now at the point where once college football comes back, NFL comes back, we are indeed 100% back and running. And that to me is very exciting because as much as I don't mind baseball, it's time to get back.
It's not football. It's not football. Football is like, the thing about baseball is just the availability. When something is available to you all the time, you lose the greater appreciation for it. It's like, going to your favorite restaurant, or going to like, a pizzeria in that, or, a fast food place.
Yeah.
In that you could do that any night of the week, but your favorite restaurant may be a little bit more expensive. It may be further away. You could only do it once in a while. That's football. It's only once a week. Your team's only playing once a week. Not like baseball where you're getting it every day or almost every other day. So, and it comes and goes so fast. It feels like, but now it's here. It's going to be here for a while. You know, that opening weekend of the NFL is going to be insane. You're getting a Thursday game, a Friday game, Saturday college football all day, NFL Sunday all day on Sunday, and then Monday night football. You get 5 days of nonstop. It's going to, I mean, my wife is going to be, Holly's going to be beside herself. But listen, this is what we do to a degree, certainly is mainly what I do. And, you know, this is our time to shine, Joe. It's our time of the year. So this is what we do. But hopping into something else, we'll hop into our topics here for the Sportsman tonight. We want to start off in the golf space as appropriate for our friend Joseph. Scottie Scheffler winning Olympic gold. Joe, what did you think of that? And his comeback really in the final round there.
62.
He went in as the favorite, the pre-tournament favorite, at about 300 to plus 400, depending what book you looked at, but right in that range as the favorite to win the gold. Then the night before, you know, before the final round, he goes as a live plus 1200 because he's four, I believe he was 4 strokes behind, I think. So he turns into a plus 1200 live dog the night before, and then he just goes full Scotty on the final round.
I mean, anytime you have a chance to get him live, I think it's wise to do so, just knowing his pedigree and what he's done this season. The guy has just cleaned up early and often, majors, tournaments, now a gold medal. I actually live bet him in the Open when he was like 2 strokes back when Schauffele ended up winning, and he ended up not having a great finish. But I saw the value. I think it was like plus 375. He was only 1 or 2 strokes back. He is so dialed in and so just focused and on another level that I think that you just always got to dabble in him, because he could just go nuclear at any point. Now, he has had struggles with his putting, but I mean, shooting a 62 in the final round, I mean, that's
bogey free,
unbelievable. And poor Tommy Fleetwood, this guy has had so many opportunities to come up and just has missed his mark. Always a bridesmaid, never a bride, it seems like, for Tommy Fleetwood. But a lot of interesting stuff. Great to see the U.S. come back-to-back years now, win the gold medal. That's awesome. And you know, it was a great tournament. I actually didn't get to watch much of it. Watch some highlights, watch some replays. I found the Olympics this year was just very tough to tune in and watch based on the scheduling and of it being in Europe. But yeah, kudos to Scotty, man. The guy has just had an unbelievable season that just caps the feather off to what is probably one of the best golf seasons since Tiger Woods cleaned up. I mean, it's just like pretty unbelievable what he was able to do. And you look back and see what happened at the PGA Championship, and it makes you wonder, had that whole nonsense not happened, maybe Scotty's sitting there with another major. Who knows? I mean, it was just, that was a bizarre thing that happened back then. But what an unbelievable season. Guy couldn't be more deserving. Just a great winner through and through. I also saw, I don't know if you saw it, but we were talking about it amongst ourselves. You see that the South Koreans having to, you know, enlist in required. Did you see this?
Tom Kim and
Byung Young On.
So yeah, the South Korea requires people under a certain age to serve a minimum of 21 months in the military. They have to do 21 months of military service, unless they are Olympic athletes who win medals. You have to medal. So you can't, it's not just you're an Olympic athlete, you have to medal. And then you're exempt from the military service, which, I mean, that would have been pretty cool if listen, Tom Kim is 22 years old, man. He's 22 years old. He was obviously visibly like shaken, emotional about not winning a medal for his country. And, you know, I'm sure that any 22-year-old
tries,
and any 22-year-old raised in this era is probably more petrified to go into a military situation than 22-year-olds were, say, in the 1930s and 40s and 50s, because you're talking about a generation that was, you know, accustomed to war. I mean, that was the times that the world was living in then. And, you know, for these kids now, and I call him a kid because he's 22. I mean, to me, that's still, you know, you're still very young to get thrust into that situation has to be a mind-blowing kind of thing. And I'm sure he's vastly disappointed that he didn't medal. He was apologetic to the South Korean, countrymen. But I mean, like, dude, like it's a weird situation.
How do you think, like, if you had to go through our group of friends, how do you think any of us would fare? Starting with like myself, Bob, you, like Jet, maybe. Like, how do you think any of us would be like set for success if we had to go and do something like that?
I think I mean, I don't mean to sound like a jerk. I think I would be okay. I think I'd be okay.
You think you'd fare all right?
I think I'd fare all right. And I think you could understand,
Yeah. No, I get it.
So out of
Who'd be the worst off?
Bob, man. Bob. Bob just like he'd be in basic training, and I feel like he would ask the drill sergeant so many questions that they would either dismiss him or he would get worked out to the point where he would just be, Superman, or he would be dead. Like he would just,
or he'd find a way to like work his way into like the cafeteria.
Why do the sheets have to be folded like this exactly? Is it beneficial to have the sheets folded like I could just see him saying some crazy stuff, complaining about the food in the mess hall, perhaps, or something.
Maybe
like
he gets enlisted in the mess hall. Maybe that's his or he's
that
like he ends up being the mail guy.
Bobby Cooks. He could be like George Costanza's dad in the Navy.
Yeah,
he was the cook.
Shut in the Navy. Down. I feel like a phoenix rising.
Oh,
that was a great
episode.
PTSD. Yeah. Well, I again, going back to what you're saying, I mean, 22 years old, he's got three more attempts at winning a medal in the Olympics. So hopefully he could do it, but that's just crazy to think. Imagine having to be required to do that. Like that is maybe, hey, you know what? I'm not gonna trash it. I'm not gonna bash it. Maybe that sets up a certain amount of life skills.
Oh, it absolutely does. I think it absolutely does. And you know what? It's just, I don't want to sound like the get off my lawn guy, and I don't want to sound like an old, like a boomer, but there's something to be said for like the generation of people who had no choice and were either getting drafted or had to enlist and fight. And those people are the salt of the earth. I mean, they're the salt of the earth. They're the reason that our country affords these other people who have no interest in ever doing that to be able to have that choice, which is the ironic thing about it. So hats off and always to our military men and women. We can't even begin to thank you. We can't even begin to thank you. It
reminds me of like a Clint Eastwood in Gran Torino.
Well, that's who I didn't want to be, was to get off my lawn. Yeah, that's the guy I didn't want to,
But I mean,
I know what you're saying.
The guy made a transformation at the end of the movie. So, but I do agree with you. Like, I don't think we have, I watched American Sniper when I was coming on the plane heading back home here. And I hadn't watched in a while. My goodness, like, to think that like how good we've got it, and then
my God,
I mean, the complaints that we have, myself included, on a daily basis.
Listen, it's normal. I think, people just don't, you don't wake up every morning. It's hard to wake up every morning and think about how appreciative you should be. Everybody falls into the trap of complaining about the things that really, when you put into perspective, are such minute, minutia compared to like serious issues. And we all fall into that. I don't think that's a fault to anybody. That's natural human nature. But yeah, when you put it into greater perspective, like what these 18, I mean, could you imagine the 18-year-olds of today being forced to storm the beaches of Normandy?
Oh my God,
I mean, it would be a tough scene, bro. It would be a real
I think we'd get obliterated.
We very well may. And you know what? If you're a younger person and you enlisted and you had that sense in Call of Duty, God bless you. God bless you.
Yeah, 100%.
You're the salt.
We need more of you.
Yeah, we do. Desperately. Olympics otherwise, I mean, U.S. women's soccer team is going to the semis. They're going to play Brazil. They won in stoppage time today against Germany. That was pretty cool. Simone Biles doing what she does.
I watched that I started watching the documentary of her on Netflix. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize in Tokyo that whole thing happened, where she just fell apart after being like the most acclaimed, most, highly respected.
She's a monster,
I mean,
man.
you should
in
watch
a good way.
I watched the first episode. It's tremendous. It's really, really good. So, I mean, when I went back and saw she's won like 3 gold medals and a silver medal at this Olympics, I'm like, good for her, man. But super deserving. I didn't also realize she's married to a Packer.
No, Bear.
Or is he now a Bear?
Former Packer. Yeah, now he's a Bear. Yeah,
He
Jonathan
went to the
Owens.
Bear. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was a defensive player. I guess when they filmed it.
I think he's a safety. He's a bench guy, but yeah, he's on the Bears now. And the Bears gave him off for minicamp to go watch her, which is pretty cool of them to do.
Good for them.
Yeah. speaking of the NFL,
Oh,
let's
yeah.
get into the NFL a little bit. It is that time of the year, like Joe started the episode off and saying, preseason is now in full swing. Hard Knocks starts tonight. Yesterday, if you're watching, obviously, but it starts tonight as we're recording with the Bears, which I'm very excited to give a watch. I've never seen the Bears have never been on Hard Knocks, so I think it'll be interesting. But the hot topic really right now in the NFL is Brandon Aiyuk, the wide receiver from the San Francisco 49ers. Turned down a deal that was rumored to be in the neighborhood of $28 million a year offered by the San Francisco 49ers. We know what the Niners roster is. It is littered with some of the most elite talent in the entire league. Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, George Kittle, Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel. You're talking about some of the best players at their respective positions in the entire league. And it kind of leaves, somebody is not going to get what they want when you have that many mouths to feed, both financially with the football, however you want to say it. So Aiyuk now, there was rumors last night that the Browns and the Patriots had structures of a trade in place to deal Aiyuk to either the Browns or the Patriots, and we heard the Steelers were out. Then you fast forward to this morning, which would be Tuesday, and now Adam Schefter is reporting that the Steelers are back in. To me, I thought that the Steelers always made the most sense because
you called that.
The Steelers, they don't have Deontay Johnson anymore. They are in desperate need of some more elite pass catchers, which I think Aiyuk is certainly a contender to be a wide receiver 1 in most teams in this league.
You think Pickens is still the number 1 there, though?
Pickens. My only issue with George Pickens is this: it has nothing to do with what he does on the field. I just think he's a little crazy. I just think he could be a little volatile, but on the field, his talent and his ability speaks for itself. He's a freak of nature, George Pickens. I do believe that it's going to be the Steelers when it's all said and done. The reason I never really bought in on the Browns or the Patriots, the Browns, number 1, just spent a ton of money on Jerry Jeudy from Denver. And the Patriots, to me, are not a team that's one guy away from doing anything. And if you're going to trade for Brandon Aiyuk, you're giving up draft equity. And then you're basically saying, well, if we're going to take him, what is it, a 1-year rental where you're going to pay him? His cap hit this year is $14 million, $14.1 million. But then you got to give him his deal because he's on the last year of his contract. So what are the Patriots going to do? They're going to pay him then $30 million, close to $30 million, when they're not really, in my opinion, close to where they need to be. You don't know what's going to happen as Gerard Mayo as the head coach. He could be a complete busted head coach. You don't know what your quarterback situation is going to be, if it's going to be Jacoby Brissett, if it's going to be Drake May, who has struggled in camp from all the reports that I've read. So to me, it was always going to be the Steelers. But Joe, do you think he ends up in Pittsburgh? Do you think he ends up in Cleveland? You think he ends up in New England? Or you think there's a wild card team out there that maybe comes in and swoops in late?
The reason I think Pittsburgh makes sense too is they just brought in Russell Wilson. You bring in a quarterback, obviously still very talented, but on the tail end of his career. You're trying to win now. And that division, you got Joe Burrow coming back. The Ravens are going to be just as good as they've ever.
Nasty.
I mean, nasty. They have got to do something to get to that next
Cleveland
level.
With Deshaun, a full year back for Deshaun now.
Deshaun, and they got players with Amari Cooper, and you mentioned so to me, I think Cleveland or Pittsburgh makes sense in the sense that you think about how tough that division, how competitive that division is going to be. And yeah, they have their defense. But you go out, you commit to getting a guy like Russell Wilson. You're committing to try to win now. He's not going to win in 3-4 years. Like, you got a shelf life of a couple years left with Russell. Last year was a bounce back year from him after looking horrific the year before. So I do think that it makes sense. I would love to see him maybe go. I mean, if a team like Baltimore came out and went for a guy like that, I mean, could you imagine? I mean, could you imagine now you got You got Derrick Henry on the backfield. And then you got, I mean, Mark Andrews coming back, obviously, from injury. But, like, could you imagine that? That would be a team that already is Super Bowl ready, basically just putting their chips in and saying it's time. So, of the teams that you mentioned, though, yeah, I definitely think the Steelers make the most sense. I'd love a team like the Packers to go out and get him.
Of course you would.
I don't think that
you would.
I don't think that they're going to trade within the NFC. I really don't. It doesn't make sense for a team,
Yeah.
especially when we've faced them how many years in a row. The
Yeah.
Packers
Yeah.
are a team that's, seems like there's always a crash collision with the 49ers, and they've had our numbers. So I can't imagine they would do that. But yeah, it's hard to say, Mikey. I really don't know when it's all said and done. But to me, the Steelers, it makes a lot of sense. And, big loss for the San Francisco 49ers, because you look at Purdy, in many ways, Aiyuk was his kind of like blanket cover, kind of like go-to
He had
guy.
a career season last year. He had a monster season.
Yeah,
Monster
I think when
season.
he was looking for someone, Aiyuk could run a lot of different patterns. He could go deep. He could run the slant. He could do a lot. So that's a big blow to that team. But like you said, they got so many playmakers. It's ridiculous. They're still going to be just fine.
Yeah, they're loaded. I mean, they're loaded. Christian McCaffrey today, they said he did suffer a calf strain or something like that, so he's probably going to be held out the rest of preseason. But honestly, why would you play Christian McCaffrey in the preseason anyway? There's no need. Teams would establish superstar players like that. Nothing good could come of them playing. Maybe a couple series just to get them some reps up to game speed, but let them ramp it up once the season starts. Moving on from there, we do have, you're talking about Brock Purdy and you're talking about all these quarterbacks in the AFC North. There are teams out there now with serious quarterback competitions. You got Pittsburgh, you got the Commanders, the Broncos, the Vikings, the Raiders, and the Patriots. Who do you think, Joe, is going to come out of those competitions as the starters for those teams? We'll start with Pittsburgh. Obviously, they bring in Russell Wilson, but they also make a late trade for Justin Fields. Everyone is hyping Fields up in preseason. Listen, guys, if you're a Pittsburgh fan, listen to me closely. Listen to me closely, okay? I love Justin. Listen, I could look around my bar. There's Ohio State shit everywhere. I love Justin Fields. You can't base your expectations off of training camp. You just can't. He's got a cannon for an arm. He's got athletic ability out the ass. That's never been a question. Now, maybe with improved offensive line play and a coach like Mike Tomlin, maybe he is going to be better. Maybe he is going to ascend to a height that I waited 3 seasons to see him get to. And I just didn't see it. And I hope you guys do see it because I'm rooting for the guy. But I would just say don't get too overly invested in preseason highlights. Don't. From anybody. No. And training camp highlights. Just don't. It's a bad road to go down. But that being said, Joe, the pressure is Russell got banged up a little bit at the beginning of camp, gave Justin the opportunity to get the reps with the ones. He's shown out apparently. Where do you think Pittsburgh lands?
I think this is Russell's team to win with. I do think if you're the Steelers, unless Russell Wilson gets hurt or he's playing so bad that, they need to make a change, I think you're best set to really have Justin sit on the sidelines and really kind of take a step back from the game and really kind of learn and develop his game by watching a guy who's won a Super Bowl, who's been there multiple times, who, in many ways you could kind of give him the experience, kind of like you had Rodgers with Jordan Love, a guy who knows how to play. And I think if they're smart, they will let him develop and let him learn, because I think Justin has the skill set. We both said it, but they would be silly to try to make it, competitive enough that they're going to take him over Russell. If Russell's playing good, right, I think this is his team. I think they committed to that when they made the trade for him. But it'll be good to see, Justin. I think you got to put him in the upper echelon of backups in the league with his skill set. I think he's a top 5 QB in terms of backups. And I think he's only going to get better. So I think Pittsburgh is going to commit to him long-term. And like I said earlier, Russell's a guy they're trying to win with right now, the next couple of years. So that's how I see things shaking out. Now, Russell does have a history getting hurt. And who knows, in the NFL, we see a lot of crazy things where guys come out and all of a sudden somebody replaces them. Look what happened with Brock Purdy. And all of a sudden now,
Yep.
you know what I mean? So that is possible. That is that is the one scenario where I would see him end up playing, you know, as a starter at the season's end. But I think aside from that scenario, I really don't think it's as close as people are making it sound.
Yeah, I agree. They paid Russell. Russell will be the week one starter if he's healthy. I will say this. I do think that his leash is going to be short. I do think that Russell Wilson will be on a short leash. And that's going to come from pressure from the fans. And I think it's going to come from the pressure of seeing what Justin did do in camp and seeing what he did do in the preseason. They're going to want to at least see what they got in Justin Fields at some point. So that leash is going to be short on Russell Wilson. Now, he has the opportunity to make that leash non-existent if he goes out and wins the first 3-4 games in a row for Pittsburgh. Then it's going to be a moot point.
Yeah.
But if he comes out, like you said, Joe, forget about getting hurt. If he comes out and he struggles mightily, which honestly, with their O-line, their run game, and Tomlin,
I think he's going to be fine, man.
I think he's going to be fine too. So we both agree on that one for Pittsburgh. Joe and I both think it'll be Russell Wilson. Washington, you know, EA put Washington up there. Jaden Daniels is the guy in Washington. I can't
100%.
see any world, so we could just kind of gloss over that one. Jaden Daniels, they picked him number 2 overall. From all accounts, he's been outstanding in camp. There's guys who will tell you that they should have drafted, that the Bears should have drafted Jaden Daniels over Caleb Williams. I'm not one of those people, but he's certainly got the pedigree and the hype coming in. It'll be Jaden Daniels. Denver is an interesting one. The Denver Broncos. So I'll start with Denver here, Joe. Denver has named Jared Stidham. Jared Stidham, the 4th round pick by the New England Patriots back in 2019, I think, transfer from Baylor to Auburn. They've named Stidham QB1 right now for the preseason. Jared Stidham QB1, Zach Wilson QB2, and then Bo Nix QB3. And I don't think anybody should be surprised. When they picked Bo Nix, I was like, you're really picking Bo Nix this early, man? Like, I thought Bo Nix was a really nice college player. He was a really nice college player. Oregon was a very, very friendly system for a guy like Bo Nix. He showed out at Auburn. But for him to be sitting 3 behind Zach Wilson and for Jared Stidham to be number 1, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, do you think that there's a chance? Like, see, Denver's a situation where you're probably really likely to see Zach Wilson or Bo Nix at least get their opportunity, because there's no way Stidham's going to like cruise through the year in that division.
It's a much different situation than the first one. I think it's going to be a rotating door, and you're only as good as how you're playing the last week. So, you know, I also don't know how good Denver's going to be this year. I really don't. They have been a team that people have had high in their projections for the last couple of years with Russell. I really didn't see it. I saw them being a middle of the pack, kind of maybe wild card cusp team, but nothing more than that. You know, with Peyton there now, it's interesting because he's gonna demand a lot out of his players, and I definitely think you're gonna see them start to play better and start to really regain form from where they were prior to that. But yeah, I agree. I don't think Stidham is going to go out and light the world on fire. And we saw what Zach Wilson did last year. Moments where he looked capable, followed by long-standing stretches of just complete and utter mind-blowing mistakes and bad play for the Jets. So, you know, if anything, this sets up really well for a guy like Bo Nix, because I don't think he's got really any high talent level to surpass, to the point where if these two guys are going back and forth for the first 3, 4, 5 weeks of NFL season, you know, by week 7, 8, people are going to be like, you know what? We got a high prospect in Bo Nix. Put him in. What's the difference? You might as well allow him to develop, to get some reps under his wing and really learn the game and see how he does. So I wouldn't be surprised by midseason if Nix is the guy to take this team through, because the other two guys, I mean, Zach Wilson is, at some point you got to say the guy's not a bona fide starting QB in the NFL. He just doesn't have it, you know? So it's interesting to say, but I think this is one where it could end up any which way. And by the way, one of those guys could take the reins and go nuts, and then they might have the team for the whole season. But I think this is a toss-up by all means.
Yep, I'd agree with pretty much everything you said there. I do think that it'll be a situation where at some point in the middle of the season or early middle of the season, you're going to see Bo Nix in there just because the other two guys aren't cutting it. I don't know.
What
I
about
don't
the
know.
Patriots? They just named Brissett the #1 guy,
That's
which is
we were
interesting.
gonna
And
go to New England. Yeah, Jacoby Brissett is the #1 guy there. Over, of course, highly touted, highly drafted Drake May. Listen, guys, I got bad experiences with white quarterbacks that wear number 10 from the University of North Carolina. I just do.
oh,
I got nightmares
good
about.
old Mitch.
Yeah, and I don't want to talk bad on anybody. But that was a nightmare scenario to go through the whole thing, and it wasn't all his fault, but it certainly was just such a mess. Listen, Drake May is not ready. Gerard Mayo doesn't think that he's ready yet. So he's going to go with a veteran guy. Remember, Gerard Mayo is taking over the most precarious head coaching position in the NFL because it was held for all these years by a legend in Bill Belichick, who transcended the way I think a lot of head coaches were viewed in terms of dynasty, true dynasties with their quarterback in the modern era of football, which we hadn't seen in forever.
Yeah.
So Gerard Mayo is going to go with somebody who he believes is completely experienced and prepared to really compete in games, because Gerard Mayo, I don't think, wants to come out as the rookie coach that replaced Belichick, and he's going to start the season with Drake May and potentially start the season, 0-3, 0-4,
Yeah.
0-5. He thinks that he could probably squeeze out a couple wins with Jacoby Brissett, who has won games in the NFL as a starter. He's got that on his resume. Drake May doesn't. Let him sit behind this guy. No one is. Here's the thing. What are people expecting from the Patriots this year? New England fans, tell me in the comments. Patriot fans, tell us in the comments after you like, comment, and subscribe, by the way. Tell us in the comments what you actually expect from the New England Patriots this year, because expectations have to be realistic. I mean, you're not going to be better than.
They're going to be the worst
not going to be
team
better
in
than
their
the
division.
Bills. Not going to be better than the Dolphins. And if Aaron Rodgers stays
Jets,
healthy, you're not going to be better than the Jets.
They're the worst team in that division
by a wide margin. So what I'm saying is there's maybe Gerard Mayo is of the right mentality to believe there's no reason to rush Drake May into a situation that could potentially fuck him up for the rest of his career, much like I think the Bears did with Justin Fields,
yes.
much like what I think the Jets did with Zach Wilson, where these guys who aren't pro ready yet get thrust in there with rosters that aren't the greatest rosters. Yes. And then they start seeing ghosts, in the words of Zach Wilson. Or was that Sam Darnold? I think that was Darnold.
Darnold, I think, said it. Yeah.
You get put in these bad situations, and maybe they're trying to avoid that.
I mean, you look at some of the greatest quarterbacks coming out, and you see the guys like Mahomes, and you see guys like Rodgers, and these guys. They didn't play right out of the gates. They had an opportunity to sit behind a veteran quarterback, learn the game, and really analyze it. And that's why I was saying earlier, I think for Fields and his development and his overall progress as a quarterback, as
your boy, look at Jordan Love. How
Jordan Love? I mean,
the guy came in the league last year and looked like a top 5 quarterback by the end of the year. So
I totally agree with you, Mikey. And by the way, Jacoby Brissett has bounced around the league. He's played a lot
journeyman,
of football,
as Ticket would say.
He definitely is a
journeyman.
You know, and I think he's going to do what they need just enough. I mean, they're going to be a bottom team. And by the way, you want to talk about a fan base that is just not grateful. I mean, this team complaining about the fact that
Boston
they're not
guys,
good enough.
Man, these Boston
I
fans,
tell you
man.
what, the most spoiled city in all of sports, between the Red Sox, the Boston Bruins.
I know.
You won 6 titles.
They've won so many.
When you win 6, imagine winning Mikey, I'm going to be honest with you. 6 Super Bowls. Imagine the Bears won 6 Super Bowls in your lifetime.
I don't even think I would want that, honestly. I think it's too much.
But my point is,
give me 2 or 3.
At that point, you have got to be prepared to never watch another Super Bowl
for
the rest of your life.
I agree
with
that.
And you know what? You still succeeded.
Yep.
You still won.
Yep.
You still come out on top. That is not normal. That happens a generation. That's a generational thing that happens once in how many lifetimes?
That's right.
So for these guys who are expecting them to be better and upset like last year that they weren't competing, give me a break, man. This team needs to do the right things. They need to continue to draft, and they need to build up the way that any other team would after having a dynasty of that measure. They need to just reground themselves. And I agree. Drake May is their future. And I said right out of the gates, out of the quarterbacks who went in this last draft, I thought he was the more high of all the guys. He was one of the more highly overrated guys coming out.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the Patriots are obnoxiously great. They were obnoxiously great. I'd rather just be like a great team than an obnoxiously great team, because it does take some of the luster out of it. Like, look, the Yankees, they were an obnoxiously great team. 27 world titles.
Yeah.
That's why I don't live and die with every Yankee game regular season, because I've been to the mountaintop so many times, guys. Like, it's like, I wish they would win it every year. Of course you wish your team would win it every year. But like, that's why, like, I live and die with like the Bears, because I've never seen it. That's why
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Would you be willing to give up 2 years of Yankees winning to watch, or let's say 3 years of watching it? Because you've seen 3 Yankees titles, right?
I would let the Yankees go 0-162 for the next 3 years to get a Bears Super Bowl.
No, but I'm not saying next. I'm saying you watch them win three MLB championships. No,
more.
But I'm saying if you had to take away 3 of those, in order to get 1 Bears Super Bowl, would you do?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Well, then that shows. That just goes to show
Yes.
how much it means. I've watched the Packers win the Super Bowl twice, and I am okay at this point in my life.
Yeah, but you're not going to give one of those Super Bowls back, because 2 is like a really nice number.
I'm not, but I'm saying I've seen 2.
Right.
I am at the point now where I am okay if I never watch another Super Bowl team with the Green Bay Packers, because I've had that experience. And if you haven't had it, it's something that people crave. So having 6, it's like just shitting in everyone else.
Yeah, you see, like, that's like Ohio State. Like, I've seen them win 2 national titles. I saw them win the double overtime one in 2002 against Miami, and then of course I saw them win the first college football playoff against Oregon. Like, that to me is like the reason I live and die with Ohio State is because, number one, I have a special loyalty with that team, but really because they're so close every year, and it's like they're right there every year. They're in the mix, but they're not obnoxious. They're not Alabama, right? Alabama is like the New England Patriots, like the New York Yankees. They're obnoxiously great, or at least they were under Coach Saban. They were an obnoxiously great team, where it's like every fucking year we got to watch Alabama win a national championship. It's obnoxious. It's obnoxious. Ohio State, that's why I don't understand why people hate them so much. Yes, they're a great team. Yes, they win a lot, but it's not like they're winning the national championship every year, every other year, every 2 years. They haven't won a national championship now in 10 years until this season. They may win it this season, but it's been a while. But let's keep rolling along. The other 2 teams that we had listed, Joe, the Minnesota Vikings, Sam Darnold, and of course, Michigan Wolverine, JJ McCarthy. I do believe that, and this is not against McCarthy, I just think that they're going to start Darnold. I think Darnold will
he's listed as a starter right now.
Is he listed as, I don't know if that was just for preseason or for the whole.
I believe today they listed him as a starting quarterback.
Okay, that makes sense to me, and that would check out with me. Again, I think it's a situation where you have a guy like Darnold. Minnesota has a good roster. They could probably win games with Darnold. And again, it may be the mentality where it's like he's not, JJ, meaning him, is not quite there yet. There's no reason to thrust them into it like we were talking about with Drake May. Yeah. And by the way, Drake May, as highly as he was drafted, I'm going to say this right now. If you put a gun to my head and you told me you want Drake May as your quarterback potentially, or JJ McCarthy, I'm taking JJ McCarthy. And I'm taking JJ McCarthy. I've seen JJ McCarthy do incredible things in the biggest spots in the biggest games. I am not a hater. Contrary to popular belief, I am not a guy who's just going to shit on everybody from Michigan because they went to Michigan. Do I hate Michigan? Absolutely. Do I give them their credit when credit's due? Absolutely. JJ McCarthy, to me, would have been the pick over Drake May. So I think McCarthy long-term is going to have a better career than Drake May, but I also see why Sam Darnold's going to start for the Vikings.
Well, they also have a lot of riches over there on the offensive side of the ball.
Sure do.
You look at a guy, Justin Jefferson, I think without question is the best receiver in football. Addison last year in his absence.
Just don't know about Addison though. Now with this DUI, they're saying he could get a 6-month fucking.
Is that what they're saying?
He gets 6 months in jail, apparently.
Well,
it could. I mean, listen, I don't think he will. But
I'm just saying if he does come back and he plays, and then you got one of the top tight ends in the
TJ
league sneaking,
Hawkinson, yep,
TJ Hawkinson, and they just added Aaron Jones,
your boy.
who I was devastated to lose, who was a
Yeah, he was
great
so
pass
great. He was
catching
so great
back.
for you
He
guys for
could do
so many
so
years.
much.
He's a
It's
bear
such a great
killer. He's a bear killer, that guy.
team guy. So they have a lot of offensive, riches. Sam Darnold to me is a guy, friend of the program, by the way. We shout out to Sammy boy.
There you go.
Great guy, but he has shown stretches when he was in Carolina, when he's shown stretches where he can go out and he can make plays and he can be successful. So I think it depends on a couple things. It depends on how strong is this NFC North division going to be, right? Because
I think it's going to be very strong.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because if the NFC North, if the Bears come out of the gates winning games, the Lions look like they're not slowing down at any point, and then you got the Packers, who I think are going to be great again this year. They might have to commit to making a change if it doesn't work early on.
Well, that's
Darnold.
True. That's true.
So that's the one thing to think about, because if they're losing games and Darnold is not now, I think Darnold's going to do enough for them to get by. But if they're not, they may opt in, Mikey, to getting JJ McCarthy in earlier than probably what they want. Because I think if they had it their way, you would probably want to develop him and not put him in until at least midway through the season, right, or, and ride Darnold. But again, that is going to be probably sneakily one of the better divisions in football this year. And if it is, they might have a gun pressed to their head where they got to win now. You might see McCarthy earlier.
The North divisions in both conferences, AFC and NFC North, in my opinion, are the two most dangerous conferences in the NFL. And I say that because not dangerous in the sense that the Super Bowl winner is necessarily going to come out of either one of those divisions. It certainly could. You got the Ravens, you got the Bengals, you got the Packers, you got the Lions. I'm saying it because the margin for error, if you're a team in that division, the margin for error is going to be very, very slim. Like you just said, Joe, if you come out of the gates and you go 0-3, 0-4, you're going to be trying to dig yourself out of a hole against teams that you got to play twice. The Browns defense, suffocating. Deshaun, you don't know. He could come back this year and have it all figured out again. The Ravens, suffocating team. The Steelers, suffocating. The Bengals, I know they lost a lot of pieces, but it's still Joe Burrow, it's still Jamar Chase, still T. Higgins. There's still a lot of firepower there. And in the NFC, you got quarterbacks there. You got the number one quarterback off the board in the draft, Caleb Williams, most highly touted quarterback since Andrew Luck. Yeah. You got Jordan Love, who just got paid the highest amount of money any quarterback in the fucking league. You got Jared Goff, who was a CUNT hair away from being to a Super Bowl last year again. So these divisions are loaded. And the margin for error, like you said, Joe, if Darnold comes out and lays an egg the first couple of weeks and they lose games, the hand is going to be forced, and they're going to have to look elsewhere to try and remain competitive. And that could,
do you think there's any other division of football that's clearly better? I mean, maybe
those two.
The AFC West, obviously, you've got the Chiefs. I think the Chargers could be okay.
The Chargers lost a lot of guys, dude. They lost Keenan Allen. They lost
Mike Williams.
They lost Austin Eckler. They lost Mike Williams. Justin Herbert has people are not going to talk about this, but his foot injury, that plantar fasciitis, that he's now going to be in a walking boot the next 10 days. He's going to be in a walking boot, not going to play in the preseason. That is an injury. People don't get it. That injury could linger. And Herbert is a mobile guy. Do not get that twisted. When Herbert has to scoot, he can scoot a little bit.
Yeah.
That could linger all year for Herbert. You don't know what's going to happen with San Diego. They always bust out however which way. Harbaugh's there. Maybe, he has a great NFL record as a head coach. Maybe he rights the ship, but I'm not counting on Los Angeles, to do anything. The Chiefs are going to be the Chiefs. But no, with the Broncos and the Raiders, I don't think that division.
I think the Raiders are going to be decent this year. I really do.
I'm just saying, like, top to bottom, I don't think it compares.
I'm trying to think of any other division. NFC West, you obviously got the Niners.
Yeah.
Seahawks are pretty decent.
The Rams, I guess. The Rams with Stafford, I guess, could be good. I don't think any division are not good. I don't think any division comes close to that one, though. I don't think any AFC, those two,
AFC
the North divisions in both conferences, I think, are the best.
It's good to have the NFC North be hopefully a great division again this year after a couple of years of not being as competitive as they have in the past, because The NFC North, to me, that's just where football
That's
exists, man.
football's football. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Lambeau, Soldier Field. I mean, that's
It's
historical
special.
stuff. And you know what? And in the AFC on the flip side, Heinz Field, Pittsburgh, the Ravens against the Steelers, the Browns against this. I mean,
Yeah,
these are the games, like those are the games that's like those are football games, man. Like
hundred percent.
those are football games. We touched on Vegas real quick, Joe. Who do you think is going to be the quarterback coming out of Vegas? Do you think it'll be the trade that they got for Gardner Minshew, or do you think Aiden O'Connell gets his shot?
I think they'll stick with Aiden O'Connell. I think they're committed to him, and they did show that they went to him last year. But Minshew's a guy who he just
Hangs
defies
around.
the
He's
odds.
a gamer, man. He's a gamer.
Yeah, the old Uncle Rico, he just goes out there and just does his thing. I love him. I think he's a great guy. I think he's great. So, the beauty about having a guy like that is if you do commit to your young gun and it doesn't pan out, that you have a more than capable backup that you can thrust in, and he could at least service you to a couple wins.
Yep.
So I do think Aiden O'Connell's the way there. They have a lot to develop with him. The rapport between him and Devontae Adams has got to improve from where it was last year. But yeah, I think he's the guy there. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, this is going to be the one I think that we're going to go opposite. I think Minshew is going to win the week 1 job. I don't know why. I just feel like they brought him in, and for the reasons that you said, Joe, he just hangs around. He's one of those guys. He's a gritty guy. He's a gamer. I think he's a player's guy. Like, I think the players respond well to him. I think they love him. I just think like, I don't know. I just could see that being like the kind of guy that Antonio Pierce likes as his quarterback. So I'm going to take Minshew. Joe's got O'Connell, but we'll move on here. We'll get to our viewer questions. Before we do, the White Sox. We had this written down. They lost 21 straight games last night. They're 5 games away from breaking the all-time MLB record.
They were my who's the problem, by the way.
Oh, there you go. That's a perfect segue. So there you go. Who is the problem, Joe?
The White Sox are my who's the problem. I saw you put them on Kanga's coolers. I didn't realize, by the way, that they had lost. I thought they had lost I saw they had lost 12 to 15 games. I didn't realize they've now lost 21 consecutive. 21. I mean, you're a pro team. You're a professional baseball team. Like, they got to have some kind of ability to win. I mean, imagine having a team where you just basically could go to the game and count on them losing. What are they, 50 games under 500?
They're 61 games under 500.
Oh, my God.
And here's the thing that's the scariest. They have 27 wins. And the most recent worst team in the league was the 03 Detroit Tigers, who went 43-119.
Oh, my God.
I don't think that the White Sox have 16 wins in them. I don't think they have 16 or 17 wins left in them. So I think they are going to be the new standard of the worst team in recent memory will be the 2024 Chicago White Sox, man. And that's really, I mean, I'm just curious now at this point, they're only 5 games away from breaking a record that has stood since 1899.
That's insane, man.
99. The Cleveland
Now they play
Spiders.
Oakland today. Oakland is not a great
team.
Played
Oakland last night and lost.
I know, but they're 20 games below 500.
If this was going to be a series where they steal a win and break it,
it would be this one.
It would be this one. We'll see. We'll see.
Crazy.
So that's Joe's problem. So that's good.
Who's your problem this week?
My problem this week is a guy, and people are going to say that I'm saying this because he was the Michigan head coach. It's Jim Harbaugh, man. It's Jim Harbaugh.
What did he do now, Michael?
He's not admitting to anything about the scandal with Stallions. And here's the thing. I'm going to start it by saying this. The NCAA is going to impose some type of penalty on Michigan, whether it's a postseason ban for a year, 2 years, suspending Sharon Moore, the current head coach, whatever they're going to do, vacate their wins. I'm going to say this right off the bat. If they come out and say Michigan has to forfeit XYZ win from last year and
they can't do that.
I mean, they can. They've done it to other teams before. But here's the thing is that nobody cares. Nobody cares when you do that because it's not like we're going to say, oh,
you're not stripping them of their championship.
Washington is the national champion from last year then. No, everyone saw the game. Everyone knows Michigan won the national title. They won the national title. But for Jim Harbaugh to this day still double down on this and say he had no idea and no involvement and no explicit knowledge of it. It's just a bold-faced lie. It's a
he gets out of this
bold-faced lie.
scot-free now, Michael,
I
because
know he
now
does. He Pete Carrolled it. He Pete Carrolled it. He
he
ran out of town.
rode off into the
He
sunset,
did,
got a
and you know what?
fucking bag.
More power to him. But if I like the only thing
That's the
is,
ideal ending that it could have happened for him.
It
where
is.
they win, he leaves, because if they had lost, he would have had to come back.
Yeah, you ain't kidding.
He would have had to come back to try to win another year, and then he's in the midst of it. But now he wipes his hands clean. He's off to the NFL. College is behind him. Just got paid a king's ransom to take over a team that's got a great young quarterback, by the way. So yeah, I think he got out of it scot-free.
I just like to see a little more hand-up accountability from Jim, but we're not going to get it. That's fine, but he is my problem for that reason. We're going to head over to the viewer questions, Joseph. Jeremy Smith, the new NFL.
Oh, Jeremy Smith is a special cat, by the way.
Okay, all right, there you go.
Yeah.
The new kickoff rule. Will we ever go back to the original way?
I'm going to punt this to you because I did not watch the Hall of Fame game, so I did not get to see it. From what I heard, it is going to be a little bit of mayhem in terms of a lot more scoring happening on kickoffs. It sounds like, based on
that was my take. That was my take. Yeah, I do think that you're going to see more return touchdowns if the officials are very strict about the kicking team. So what happens is there's a 12th guy on the field for the kicking team who has to immediately lead the holder. The holder for the placeholder has to leave the field immediately and check in with the ref. There's 3 whistles that are blown. One to signify that the kicker could start running at the ball. One to signify that the ball's caught and the line could start running. It's chaotic. Number one. Number two, if the referees and the officials are very strict about the kicking team not leaving that line of scrimmage before the return man actually catches and secures the ball, it's going to be a nightmare of penalties. It's going to be a nightmare. But if they're super
how are they
strict
going
on
to do
it,
that? Because normally the players run as the kickers run.
so you have to wait until
unison.
the guy. You have to wait. It's basically like tagging in baseball. You have to wait to see the outfielder, or we'll call him the return man, catch the ball first.
Well,
then
he's going to have so much
run.
more space to run.
That's what I'm saying. So the momentum of the return man is going to be so much greater than that of the kick coverage team, that I do think if you have an excellent return guy, I think, 1 or 2 broken tackles, the guy's going to be gone. He's going to be gone.
Yeah.
It's going to be very interesting. Jeremy, to answer your question, I think if it becomes embarrassing to the point where there's a penalty every kickoff or there's too many return touchdowns, I think they'll consider going back to the old way. But if it somehow works out and all things being equal, that it doesn't really affect the game too much, then no, they'll probably.
They did have to do something, because last year it just turned into like a touchback machine.
I mean, there's no returns.
It was just,
I honestly prefer this to a degree. I just really am concerned about, like, last week you didn't see any starting guys return these kicks. When you see a real return man,
like a Cordarrelle Patterson or somebody like that.
Oh my God. I mean, I could only imagine like Hester in his prime returning kicks like this. I mean, he might've had 20 returns instead of 14, Crazy. Nathan Lamana asks, well, at first he says, I love the pod. We appreciate that, Nathan.
Oh, we love that, man.
What player are you most excited to watch this year, and why? And I would assume that that's obviously an NFL reference.
I actually going to go with your guy. I'm really excited to see what Caleb Williams does. I actually, Mikey, I hope he's good. I want him to be good. Me too. I want, people think that I just shit on the Bears and hate on the Bears. I actually don't. I embrace the rivalry. I embrace the division being good. As I said earlier, I think it's good for football if the Bears are good. I would like to see how he handles himself with the spotlight on him, with so much pressure. The only thing is I'm concerned is just to see him melt down last year, from the midpoint of the season onward, just the collapse that he had and how he seemed very frail. I don't know mentally how he's going to handle this kind of pressure of having to take a team and really being the guy. I think he's got the talent by a long shot, but I would say I'm most excited to see how he pans out and how that team ends up, because it impacts my Packers, it impacts the NFC, it impacts a lot. So that's what I got my eyes on mostly.
I like that. And Caleb, going back to USC, number one, I think that his coach at USC is a paper bull. I'm not a Lincoln Riley fan. I'll never be a Lincoln Riley fan. I think he's grossly overcompensated for a guy who, yes, he's developed quarterbacks that for the most part, transferred to him. He did not have originally, nor did he recruit originally. So, to me, he's a paper bull. Now he's surrounded by men who have been in this profession, in this sport for a long time. His defense at USC was one of the worst defenses I have ever seen. They were allergic to tackling. He could score 6 touchdowns and they would still give up 7 touchdowns. So I think the scenario is different. I hope he does well. Could he bust? He absolutely could. He could. That's just the nature of the NFL. I'm going to say, though, that's an obvious for me. Of course, I mean, Bears players aside, I don't want to pick a Bears player. I am really excited to see Talanoa Hufanga from the San Francisco 49ers get back on the field. That's their young safety, who I think is a Troy Polamalu 2.0. You watch this guy play, and he's been under the tutelage of Troy. You watch this guy play. This guy flies all over the field, man. This guy makes those kind of Polamalu plays where he's jumping over the line of scrimmage, where he's like hurdling tacklers. This guy is such an exciting guy to watch. I hope he could stay healthy, because typically guys like that, like Troy was an enigma, how he stayed healthy when he threw his body, threw caution to the wind with his body every single play. I hope this guy could hold up, because if you haven't seen him play yet, keep an eye out for Hufanga from the 49ers. He's a fun watch every single week. So that's the guy I'm looking forward to coming back from injury. EBD asks, what sporting icon would you like to reincarnate as?
Sporting icon. That's a good question. I'm a hockey guy. I'll go with a hockey take on this. We every chance I have to talk hockey on the Sportsman, I like to take it. Give me Martin Brodeur. I think arguably I do that because you're a Jersey guy, Mikey. Yeah. You're a Devils guy. I think arguably one of the best goaltenders to ever play, revolutionized the position. Not only was he an exceptional goalie, he acted as like a third defenseman oftentimes, one of the best stick handling goalies, scored, I think, 2 goals, but could do it all. Just an absolute enigma, Canadian guy. I like Patrick Waugh too, but give me Martin Brodeur. I would love to have a day in his shoes to go take it back and see what it'd be like to be a goalie of that magnitude, living in Jersey, great place to be. Won a Stanley Cup. I think he won 2 Stanley Cups. So that's my guy that I'll take. I'll go with him.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good one. I think I've thought about like the major sports like baseball, football, basketball, and I just keep coming back to boxing for whatever reason. That like I just
Mike Tyson.
Yeah. I just think it would be awesome to come back like reincarnated as like the world heavyweight champion. Like when
People
boxing
used to
actually
hold their
mattered.
breath.
That's
when
what I
mean. A boxing match. Now boxing is just.
That's what I mean. But if you're asking me like reincarnate, that means I could go to anybody. Like the Tyson era of boxing, and like even before that, and a little bit after it too, to a degree. Mike Tyson or somebody like that, or the Holyfield era, or
even his press conferences were just unbelievable, man. People were on pins and needles watching him, what he was going to say, what he was going to do. I'm of the nature that sports were better back then. I across the board. Sure. I just thought it was just the golden era of sports. Though those early 90s to mid 90s, man, it was special.
We got like I'll do like 3 more, Joe. We got a bunch more, but we'll do 3 more because we're running.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Nick DeRosa. It's an FMK, Joe. A barbecue edition FMK from Nick DeRosa.
Oh, this is gonna be fun.
FMK hot dogs, burgers, or chicken wings. Fuck, marry, kill. Hot dogs, burgers, chicken.
I mean, I'm killing the hot dog right out of the gate.
Okay, that's an easy one. We're both on the same page there.
Yeah, no, if it's a grilled sausage with peppers, it's a little tougher, but it's still the inferior of the 3 in my eyes, anyways. And
I love
not
a good
take
human
anything,
dog, but
to take a good barbecue burger, that's pretty fucking special. That goes a long way. But we did the chicken wings before, and I agreed with you, Mikey. I think chicken wings are some of the most versatile food items in the game. I mean, to the point where you could eat them as a starter, you could eat them as an entree, you could share them at a party. They're so you could have them every which way. And for that reason, I'm going to marry the chicken wings.
Okay.
I'm going to fuck with the burger, and I'm going to kill the hot dog.
Yeah, I'm going to kill the dog. I'll just go oppo on the other one. I'd marry a burger because burger to me is like, also, I feel like burger you could do pretty much anytime.
You could, yes.
Burger hits any, and then, you know, chicken wings, you just want to get down and dirty with wings.
The nice thing about the chicken wings too is you got so many different flavors that you could do as well, right? So it almost changes the entire dynamic if you're doing like a garlic parm, or you're doing like you know, if you're doing a hot or whatever you're doing, it changes the whole dynamics.
Yes. Jared Hale asked me a question specifically. I'll answer it. He said, Mikey, is it true that the 3-year-old is worse than the 2-year-old? What are some dad tips for toddlers? I'm going to say this right now. My son was better at 3 than he was at 2. And my son's easy. Well,
they call it the terrible twos, no?
They do, but I will say this. My daughter is much worse at 3 than she was at 2. Gabriella is a lot more. She has a much stronger personality now at 3, and she's not afraid to use it. So she is definitely a scenario where 3 has been worse than 2. But what I always try to remember, Jared, is like, this is what my son's going to be 6. He's going to start kindergarten this year. Like, it's just, I try to just remember, like, they just grow up. Like, these days are going to be gone in the blink of an eye, and I'm going to miss it so much because she like is in love with me. My daughter, granted, she's a lot, but she is still in that phase where like daddy means everything to her.
That's amazing.
And like that I know that's going to be fleeting and it's going to be gone. So when you have the toughest times with that, just remember and try and put that into perspective that those days are going to be gone sooner than you believe. And that's going to be really awful. So let's try and stay in the moment as much as we can, even when the moments aren't exactly great.
You're blessed. You have one of each.
Yes,
you really are.
I am.
Someone asked me the other day, they said, what would you prefer to, have a boy or a girl first? Right. And I said, everything in my mind says I want to have a boy first, so that if I have a daughter after, I can kind of. But that being said, I really don't think it makes a difference. I think regardless what I have, it would be special. So having 1 and 1, the way you've done it, Mike, I think you unlocked the right code.
I hit the lottery, bro. Like, listen, really I could tell you all, I could bullshit everybody out there and say I didn't care if I had a girl or a boy first. I wanted to have a boy first. I'll be honest. I just did. I wanted to have a boy first. That was very selfish of me. It was egotistical of me, but like, it's just, you want me to lie to you? I'm not going to lie. I'm just being transparent. I did want a boy first, and God blessed me with a healthy boy first. And that's the first and foremost thing. You don't care what happens, because once they're out and you realize, like, these are little human beings. These are little organisms that could be affected with some horrible shit, just like everyone else can. That's when it just shifts to, oh my God, you stupid fucking idiot. Just be happy that both these babies are healthy. I got lucky. I got very lucky. I hit the life lottery, getting the boy first, and then having my daughter. And even when Holly was pregnant the second time and we didn't know what we were going to have yet, selfish me again, I was like, oh, I'd love another boy. Having a girl was the greatest thing to ever happen.
You say having that all
a girl was having a girl was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, and I will stand on that till the day I die. All right, 2 more and that's it. Mike Bond. New college football playoff system this year, 12 teams, Joe, as you know, not
I think 4. It's great.
This question, man, and Joe, you can answer first, and then I'm just going to eviscerate this question. Over under 8.5 SEC teams in the playoffs.
I mean, that's
ridiculous.
Well, okay, let's see. Okay, you have Washington is probably going to be.
That's a Big Ten. That's a Big Ten school.
No, but I'm trying to think how many non-SEC teams are going to be in contention. Now, they lost Penix, so maybe Washington might not be back there. Oregon lost Bo Nix, they might not be back there. Like, I'm trying to think.
Oregon's going to get there.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to see how many non-SEC teams, Mikey, do you think are going to be like top 10?
I don't think it matters. I'm going to tell you why, because I crunched.
You know what I'm saying? You know how I'm trying to look at it?
Yes, like, I crunched the numbers on this because this is a typical Now, I would bet my next
Michigan and Ohio State are two more.
Yeah, I would bet my next paycheck that Mike Bond is an SEC fan. He is a fan of an SEC football team, whichever team it may be. He's an SEC guy. These SEC fans are the biggest college football snobs on the planet, and rightfully so, because
But they deserve to be.
Yeah, but here's the thing that I'm going to hit you people with these stats, and people aren't going to believe it, but you could go ahead and look it up yourself. Since the inception of the college football playoff, 2014, up until last year, the last week of the season where they have the final playoff rankings, where they rank the top four who make the playoff, and then they also rank 5 through 25. The top 12 every year. What do you think the most SEC teams in the top 12 of the last week of the college football ranking? How many SEC teams do you think was the number one number out of 12? In the last week, when the final ranking goes out, how many, what do you think the biggest number was?
Well, the way you're saying it now, I think it's not as much as I would initially think.
Go ahead. So take a guess.
6?
No.
That's half. That's half.
No.
4?
That's right. 4. And that happened 3 times only.
That's crazy.
In 2014, 3 SEC teams in the top 12 final. In 15, 2 SEC teams in the top 12 final. In 16, 1 SEC team in the top 12 final. In 17, 3, 18, 4, 19, 4, 2024, 21-3, 22-3, and last year 4. There has never been more than 4 SEC teams ranked in the top 12. People are so jaded by the SEC because of Nick Saban, because of Urban Meyer with the Florida Gators,
Kirby Smart,
with Kirby Smart, and the Georgia Bulldogs. They are fixated on these programs who get these great coaches, and they lead them to these little dynasty runs. Now, Saban's dynasty run was the greatest of all time, so they rested all their laurels on the Alabama. But in general, the most SEC teams to ever make the top 12 in the college football playoff final week ranking before the playoffs actually started
was crazy.
4 teams. 4. So, Mike, to answer your question,
under.
I would bet my life that it would be under 8.5 SEC teams in the playoffs this year.
Well, I named Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon,
Clemson.
You know,
there were years in there that Oklahoma was in, Texas was in. Now, obviously, there's been realignment, so they're in SEC. So now I understand why, you would be thinking that maybe the SEC is going to get more spots.
Well, even now, USC now is a SEC team, same thing, right?
No, Big Ten, USC.
Oh, sorry, they went to Big Ten, yeah.
But I mean, you have
That's
your Clemson
crazy.
who made your Clemson's. You had a Clemson in the top 12. You had Baylor's in the top 12. You had Florida State's in the top 12. You had Notre Dame in the top 12.
Florida State is going to be. I mean, well, the thing is, when you lose a quarterback in college football that is so good like that, it makes you wonder, like, how is the team going to be the following year, right? So you look at the teams like, Penix from Washington. You look at Bo Nix from Oregon. I would make I would make the claim that Ohio State and Michigan are going to be just as good, if not better, because you see JJ McCarthy as a quarterback, but he wasn't the reason they won games. Right. Ohio State, same thing. I think they're still going to be just as good programs. So that's 2 teams I would say that are going to be the top 12 right there.
Well, this guy he's probably asking this question now because Oklahoma and Texas are now in the SEC. So maybe Texas is probably a lock to make the playoff. Oklahoma, I don't know about that. Vanderbilt, no. Texas A&M, I don't think so. Tennessee, I don't think so. South Carolina.
Really? Tennessee's solid.
Tennessee's always solid. I just don't think they're going to make the top 12. Maybe they will. Ole Miss is a team that I think could make it. Ole Miss, Jackson Dart's really good. I think they could make it. Missouri could surprise some teams this year. I think Missouri could be decent again this year. They were really good last year. We'll see about Missouri. Mississippi State, no. LSU, maybe. Yeah, probably. Kentucky, no. Georgia, yeah. Florida, no. Auburn, no. Arkansas, no. And Alabama. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got 7, probably 7, if that. And you know what? That would be a record year. But now again, again, when I looked at those numbers, I was even a little surprised that there was only 4 was the largest number. So this year now you factor in Oklahoma and Texas. Those are the 2 teams that perennially finish top 12 almost every year. So that gives them a freebie on 2. But I still, Mike Bond, I still think very much under 8.5. I don't think 9 teams. Yeah. Yeah.
Still a good question, because I did not know that. Mikey, a little research. That was mind blowing.
Yes. Yes. I appreciate that. And then last one, and we'll get out of here. Nathan Edwards, Joe, this is going to have to be a question for you. What is the max number of nuggets that you could eat? Listen, I ate the 50 and 526. Could I have eaten more? Yeah, probably.
What's the timeline? What's the timeline?
He didn't give one.
Well, let's say you had half an hour.
Yeah.
If you had half an hour, how many nuggets?
100 at least.
I think 50 is probably up there for me in half an hour. I can't comprehend. Now we've done challenges. We did the Chick-fil-A nuggets, which are
how many?
Not even
what was
close.
The challenge on that?
We had to do 200 between the 3 of us. But those are small, Mike. You know, the Chick-fil-A nuggets, they're like little, they're literally little nuggets. They're not
right.
Like you look at the Wendy's, God bless Wendy, but they're big size nuggets.
Yeah.
Like those are you probably get a couple.
Well, I mean, still 200 though is a lot between 3 guys.
Bob did like 80.
Did he really?
He went nuts. He did
if
like
Bob
80
could eat 80, I could eat 160.
Well, the small ones, you could do. Bob on these eating challenges steps up to the plate. I would say with the full size, either a McDonald's or Wendy's, but that size nugget, half an hour, somewhere between 35 to maybe 50.
There you go.
You got to think you got to be eating them quick.
Yes.
If you do 30, you're doing a nugget a minute.
Yes.
That's not, it sounds like, oh, that's plenty of time. But when you start struggling and you're trying to swallow and chew that thing down, that's not easy. And then take into account, here's something that you need to take into account.
Just imagine doing 10 in a minute.
That's ridiculous. But take into account when we did our pizza challenge, right? The pizza, after so many, it starts to get dry. It's hard to swallow. So you're consuming a lot of water, which people don't take into account. The water helps fill you up too. By the end of it, you feel like your stomach is going to burst.
It's disgusting.
It's tough. So maybe I'd temper it to like 35, 40 maybe. That's a lot of fucking nuggets in half an hour.
A lot of nuggets.
Mikey's saying 100. But he did 50 in 5 minutes, so who knows?
Yeah. Real proud moment for me. Anyway, it's a proud moment for all of us tonight to be able to bring you another episode of the Sportsmen.
Sure was.
If you haven't already, we do miss you, Big Tick. If you haven't already, make sure you check out our socials, especially that YouTube. You want to click like and subscribe to that YouTube channel ASAP, folks. Tell your friends about it. Spread the word. The Sportsmen are here to stay. And that's Joey D. I'm Mikey V. And also for the Big Ticket, we appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in this week, and we will see you next week.